Hi there. Thanks for joining us with FlexMLS. This was really called reverse prospecting accidentally. And I'll just say I had a brain fart or something, but that is not exactly what we're talking about, but what we're talking about is prospecting. The difference is that reverse prospecting is a feature in the MLS that it is limited in use. It's really just to, if you see somebody else that has a listing, just like when you look at the hot sheet, it allows you to, the reverse prospecting is different than the data processing. Reverse prospecting allows you to be able to look at somebody else's listing and see what other searches people are looking for to find that. And that's kind of limited. So what we're going to do is talk about the CRS data processing, and how that's different is, and let me share my screen here. I'm not in my home office where I usually do this. I don't have my headset on, which is something I usually do. So this is just a little bit different for me. But at any rate, I'm going to share my screen. And when we're at the MLS, I have a shortcut on my desktop that's CRS tax search. And if you've attended some of the trainings before, how I put those up there is I just go to the menu, and anything that has a star shows up at the top. So I've got quick search, I've got hot sheet. If you don't want it up there, just unclick the star. If you want it up there, just click the star. So that's how I have things up there. I use the CRS a lot. Yes, I can go to it from a property, but I also can just go to it from CRS. So when I go to CRS, typically when you go to CRS, you're going to do property search. You've got some counties in there. We're going to go to the other tab that says prospecting. And that prospecting tab, let's minimize this so we're not looking at everybody's faces. Not that you don't have lovely faces. So in our prospecting tab, automatically it's going to show up the counties that I had in my property search. So in my property search, I had these counties. So when I go to prospecting, it shows the same counties. If I want to look for a neighborhood, maybe I don't really care about some of these other counties, and I can just click them off. If I want to look at a specific address, and maybe it's a new listing and I want to prospect the neighborhood around there, I can start to, it's in Roanoke City, so I've left that one, and I can start to type. And I'll, whoops. As I said, I'm not really at my home computer today. There we go. It starts to fill it in down here, and there's the actual address. So if I zoom out a little bit, I can look for prospects in a number of different ways. One is I can draw a space, but I also can figure out certain criteria. So let's do it this way. Let's draw a space first. So I'm going to zoom in, about there. And I'm going to use draw, and I want to draw a polygon, meaning it has multiple sides. And I'm going to start right here along Hirschberger, and I'm going to click each time I want it to come to a stopping point. And I can still scroll up some as much as I want to. All right, then I just let's try that one more time. Go to whatever space I want to fill in. And then I'm done. So because it says nothing, it tells me how many exports are remaining of what I've had. So let's say we want MLS listings. We want to remove all active listings. We don't want to show active listings. So I'm going to say update and property type. If I just left click in the search, it'll show me anything there. There's not anything as far as the property type that I'm interested in there. I could have last sales date, last price. Maybe I want to exclude flood zones. And improvement type. If it's multifamily, I just want single family. I don't want any commercial. I don't want any multifamily. There's some condos or duplexes in that area. I don't want any of that. Anything that you want in this area, you fill that out. So that allows me to fine tune it a little more. So I'm going to draw and then I'm going to click right there and I want to include that. I can either include it or exclude it. So I'm going to include it. And then it's going to show me how many homes that fit that criteria came up. And it's going to tell me that on the right. And my internet connection is unstable. Well, I hate that. As I said, I'm not at my home computer. I'm doing the best I can here. So I'm going to take out this address. So I clicked on that so that way it can get all addresses. When it's checked, it only is giving me that address. So there's 1,000 properties. Well, I don't want to mail to 1,000 properties. So if we come down to owner type, do we care if it's owner occupied, if it's absentee, in state or out of state? I think I'd like all of those. How long has it been owned? Okay, we don't want somebody that's just purchased it. So let's say from 8 years to 30 years. So now we're down to 419. Well, that's a little better. I think we already did property type. Yes, we did. So we don't need any of that. Recent sales. Remove any, we've got that in the ownership duration. If we want to, we can certainly remove anything that's sales in the last 18 months. It shouldn't make any difference to speak of. If they've owned it at least eight years, it's not going to make a difference. And you can see it's still 419. We've excluded flood zones, and there's not any flood zones in that area. The improvement type is single family residence. Maybe we want to only put anything that's 1,000 square feet minimum. Well, now it's down to 274. So wow, a lot of those homes were under 1,000 square feet. So let's see from there what we've got. And I can do a couple different things. I can zoom into it, and you'll see some of these properties don't have a dot and some do. The ones with the dots are the ones that are on this list of 274. They met all the criteria we put in. And I can hover over it, and it says this person last sale was 2008 for $95,000. Well, they've been there a while. Doesn't give me this because there's no dot there. This one over here, since 1998, $85,000. So these might be people we want to target. 95,000 since 2007. So if I want to use these, and any of these that have a little icon beside it, I can hover over it. So this person on Avalon, I can hover over, and it says it had been on the MLS at one point and expired. That was back in 2004, 2005. Well, yeah, at that time, it was tough to sell anything. They had listed it for $97,500. So they didn't sell it, and you know, maybe they might be interested now. If I scroll down here, here's another one. I can hover over it. It was listed in 2008, expired in 2000, listed in 2007, expired in 2008, and was listed for $179,950. It expired. Here's one down here that, there it is, 2008, 2009 again. So during the last dip in the housing, some of these properties, they tried to sell them. Now this one's back to 2001 and 2002. That one's 2010. So that's much more recent. They tried to sell it in 2010 and it expired. So it does give you information. That's sort of a possible foreclosure. And if you're not familiar with how foreclosures work, if you don't pay your mortgage for a period of time, and of course, right now during the time that everybody has a chance at least at having that held off, in normal times, if you don't pay your mortgage for, typically it's about 3 months, then you get a letter from your mortgage company that says, hey, we're going to foreclose you. And if it goes to those proceedings but doesn't get auctioned off, they at least notify the courts that, hey, we're going to do this. And you still have up until the day before the auction to come up with the money. And a lot of people do. But that's what that little looks like a courthouse is. So now if I want to export this or create labels, you can do this in 2 different ways. One, you could just create labels right now. I could say create labels, and it would give me a chance of skipping anything that doesn't have a zip code, remove duplicates. Maybe I don't want to put Mr. and Mrs. on there. Maybe I don't want to include a line for current resident because it sounds kind of impersonal. And which label do you want to use? 5160, let's say. So I come down and I can either do that in a Word document or PDF. My advice would be to do it in a Word document because you might want to edit something later. So if I say I want to save this to a Word document and it says create labels, it's going to come up. Normally I would save this, but for the sake of this class, I'm going to open it. Normally I'd never open anything directly from just my personal preference as far as how you use your computer. So there's the sheet of labels that's in Word. And if I decided I wanted to change something or I wanted to look at it, I could. So if I wanted to just print these labels, I could do that. Now, here's the other thing. If I, and we'll come up and close this, if I say I want to export, then it gives me a chance. Do I want to export all of them? I'm going to say yes. I could certainly say, hey, I don't want to export certain ones. And it gives me a chance to edit fields. Now, if you're going to be doing this with labels, if you're going to be sending this mailing list to somebody to do postcards or something, you need to know how it is that whoever it is going to use your data. So do they want just the owner name, or do they want it in separate fields of first name, last name? And if I'm going to export this and save it in Excel, I'd like to know what the property address is, because if I just save it and somebody has another address, that they don't live there, they own the property, I don't have any way of knowing. So I'll just show you what I mean. If I don't have anything except just the address type of thing checked, and I say export, it's going to give me a chance to do it in Excel. And if you're just doing, and if you've never done this in Excel, get over in this left-hand corner, double click, and it highlights everything, and then double click between any row, and it automatically expands all the rows. So that's all well and good, but see, like we've got this Paul Helmandaler on Bruce Mill Road in Fincastle. Well, that's fine if we want to send them a postcard or some kind of letter, but for our own purpose, what kind of what property does that go with? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to save this. That's why if I'm doing something to export it in Excel because I want to keep up with it, then I want to know what the property address is. And maybe I want to know something else, like what was the last transfer date, or anything else. So I could choose any of these things to be in my, it would be a column in Excel. So I'm going to say export. And now if I open it, and if I come down, like here's somebody in Hardy, and he owns Cornell Street. So most of these are the owner, but if there's somebody that's somewhere else, it'll list what this street is. And that's helpful just for you to know to keep up with it. So there again, I'll double click over here on the left, I'll double click in between, and then I can see exactly what it is. So here's Joseph Cummings on Dove Lane and Blue Ridge. He owns 2 properties on Cedarhurst. Okay, so he probably owns, well, he has 3 properties, Cedarhurst and Sunrise. So he probably has rental properties. So then you can decide, do you want to send to those folks or not send to those folks? But it gives you a little something to keep up with. So depending on what you're going to do with the data, if you're going to export it, if you export it, goes to Excel. If you create labels, then it's going to create either in a PDF or in a Word document. And you can't easily edit a PDF. You can edit a Word document, but that's just going to be just the way it would be addressed. So depending on what your use is going to depend on what you're going to do. So now let's say we want to do some other fine tuning of this, or we want to do another area. So anything that I change, it's going to change on the fly. I also can come down here to this little box, and it's not easy to see because it's underneath the minus sign. And this little box down here says aerial. So maybe I want to look at an aerial view. And so maybe I really don't want anything that's terribly close to Huff Lane School and the mall. Maybe I feel like, well, yeah, they might be something I can list, but I'm not sure that that would be a challenge to sell. And maybe I don't want to sell to that. So I can certainly exclude some things. I can change my shape. So any of those things are possible. In any of these I can look at. So this gives you a chance to create neighborhoods, gives you a chance. I used to do a lot of mailing of postcards after I did a listing. I'd mail to 100 neighbors, and when I did that, we didn't really have the CRS prospecting. And again, just from the CRS, when you go to property search, you just go to the prospecting tab, and that takes you right to it. So you can prospect anything. I could prospect just a zip code. I could just put 24153. I could put a subdivision, whatever it is. So let's say I just want everything that's in Salem. And then maybe I want certain high schools. I want Salem High School. And owner type, I only want owner occupied. So that made 5,500. So that's more than I want. So you have all sorts of different ways to fine tune this. You really, really have to sit down and think about what you're trying to do. So are there some questions on, I'll come down to everybody and tell me what questions you have about what we were doing. What do you see that you would use it at? What questions do you have? And you're all muted, so you would have to unmute it.
Beth,
Yes.
is there some way that I know it's being recorded that we can go back and review this on how you do all this?
I will share this, and I'll also post on Facebook a link to the help file. And there's a help video as well. You know, just because I'm telling you how to do something, you might glean something from somebody else. Never think that there's only one way to learn something. So
I need to learn it all.
it takes I'm going to say a couple hours for it to kind of get the recording down, and then I'll post that. So certainly by tomorrow I'll post that, and I'll post any additional help items that might be helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No hurry. These are things that I have to learn, but you have to go over and over again. That's
yes,
all.
yes. And if you end up that you think, hey, I'd like to do it this way, hey, just reach out and you know, I can do it one-on-one, whether it's in person or via Zoom or whatever.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't know exactly what you're going to use it as.
No. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Paige, what you got? Paige, did you have a question?
Thank you, Beth. I'm going to leave now, so
okay.
We'll be in touch.
All right.
You.
Anybody else? All right. Well, this was a little bit cumbersome. It didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked, but we got through it. And I will post this and some other help files, and just let me know what you need, and I appreciate it.